Welcome to another episode of Live with Laura. I'm your host, Laura Hediger, and this conversation is one I have been looking forward to for a very long time for a couple of reasons. First off, I want to talk directly to all the moms and the parents and even the grandparents who are watching right now. Isn't there something so special about when you sit down with your child or your grandchild and you read a book? You see so many things going on in their minds and their imaginations, from talking about the colors to the different animals to the story itself. And selfishly, I love that time, just having my little one next to me or maybe sitting on my lap and doing that. No screens, just a book. But I've always wondered, how do people come up with the actual stories that I'm reading to my kids? Well, luckily, there is someone on staff at First Alert 4 who has not only come up with a story, she has come up with 5 different ones, and she has them right in front of us. You know her, you love her, Paige Hulsey. It is so good to see you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for this invitation. I'm honored to be with you, Laura, on Live with Laura.
Well, thank you for giving us a full hour of your time, and also for giving us so much of your heart in the 5 books that you have published so far.
Thank you. It's been a journey, really, an adventure, a learning journey as well for the last 4 or 5 years.
Let's get into that journey. You have 2 little boys.
Yeah.
So back in 2020, when you had your first son, I'm sure you started really getting into reading children's books.
Yeah, and I have to give credit, honestly, to my husband, because I always knew reading to kids was important. We had a collection of books. I was one of those moms for the baby shower where we asked for books instead of cards, and I love that tradition. But I didn't know how or when to start reading. Like, he always felt too little, or when he was with me, he wanted to eat, and so it was honestly his dad. It was honestly his husband, my husband, who started reading to my son first. And they were really good at it. And it was fun to watch from afar that he could actually sit at a young age and pay attention. And so that's when I really started paying more attention to what books we were reading, what books were available, what books looked like, what they sounded like, and thinking more deeply about a dream that I had put in the back of my mind for a long time.
So when did you really think, okay, there's something missing? There's a story that I would like other kids to hear that someone else hasn't created yet?
That's exactly what the first story was. My first book is A Bad Day Fishing, and I did feel like there hadn't been a modern take on a fishing story for a while. There were some old classics, but I didn't feel like a new one had been done. To be honest, though, my first book idea wasn't about fishing. I had a different series in mind. My oldest son was a COVID baby, and so he was born in 2020, and so our family gatherings kind of evolved into an event outside. We would gather around my grandpa's pond, and the adults would go fishing, and as a newborn, he was just laying there on a blanket. But that's when Jack's story, A Bad Day Fishing, came to me. Jack is the main character. And while that story idea started with my oldest son, it wasn't until I had my second son 2 years later that I said, I'm going to make this into a book. And some people might say, why would you write a story about a bad day? It's because we all have them. And I want my kids to know that, hey, you're going to have a bad day. And it's okay. And you're definitely going to have a lot of bad days if you go fishing. The point isn't to avoid a bad day. The point is to help us figure out, how do we make it a good day? How do we find the good along the way?
That is something that I love when I sit down with my kids and read A Bad Day Fishing or A Bad Day of Baseball, which we will get to. That truly, we do all have bad days, but how are we going to make the most of it?
Yes.
And something that's so interesting about you when you sit here so polished, I wouldn't think that fishing is so important to who you are, who you were, and who you continue to be.
Yeah, fishing is something that my family has always done. So to be honest, there's not anything intrinsically about fishing itself, about the rod and the reel and the fish, whether it's a bass or a walleye, that I love. What I love about fishing is being outside and being with family. So fishing is something that my dad and my grandpa and my brothers always did a lot of. Mm-hmm. And so for me to hang out with them and to be with them that's kind of what you had to do. Same with hunting. But the point is, whether you like fishing or just the outdoors, is just that pursuit of something, of having a goal, overcoming some struggles along the way. And our family does still enjoy to fish. And my boys do too. And they're learning that you're going to have a lot of bad days fishing. In fact, you're not going to have a perfect day fishing. And whether it's fishing or baseball, things go wrong. So while I'm not like a professional fisherman, don't come to me to ask me what bait to use or what's the best fishing line. It is something that we enjoy the community of.
And it's introducing other kids to it, because I went fishing once in my entire life with my grandpa many, many years ago, and I've never taken my son. We recently read your book again, and he said, "So when can we go fishing, Mommy?" And when you hear stories like that, that's got to make you feel good, because you just introduced a brand new idea to a child who had no idea that even existed.
That's so special. I'm so glad you shared that. Thank you so much. And I hope that whether it's you or another mom hears that, I hope they don't feel intimidated. Like, well, I don't know how to go fishing, because I also didn't know how to write a book. And I think part of being a mom, we just figure it out. And so maybe that's the next thing that you guys can just figure out together and teach to the child, not only how to go fishing, but just how to figure stuff out.
Well, I also suggested maybe we can just go with Miss Paige, who wrote the book, and she can take you fishing.
Standing invitation.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
So you referenced Jack, the little boy in A Bad Day Fishing, and also the same little boy in A Bad Day of Baseball. Who is Jack?
Well, first of all, the name Jack is significant. Jack is actually the name that I had for a long time had picked out if I ever had a boy. I wanted to name him Jack. My son's names are not Jack.
Right.
My husband does coach baseball, and it's kind of like a teacher. When a teacher is trying to pick out a baby name, they have to think of all the students who they've had,
And they're like, absolutely not, absolutely not.
So Jack did get eliminated, but Jack always held a special place in my heart. So that's where the name Jack comes from. And Jack does look a lot like my son, but really he's just any kid who, whether he does feel independent or you want him to feel independent, who's ready for an adventure.
And he teams up with a very special friend.
Yes. So Jack's best friend, his name is Bud. And Bud was symbolic of our golden doodle, who we recently lost, who passed away, Lou. So we had our own Bud. And sometimes we'd call him and I call my boys Bud too. So it's just a sweet duo, because I think there is a really special relationship between kids and their pets.
So you put A Bad Day Fishing out into the world after your second son was born. Would you care to share?
Yeah, so the story idea came to me after I had my oldest son.
Okay.
And just kind of festered in my head. But it wasn't until after I had my second son and I knew our family was complete. And, to be honest, it was the middle of the night when, as a postpartum mom, you're awake and you're the only person awake and you feel like you're all alone and you're trying to figure out how to feed your baby and how to get them to sleep, and you're worrying about all the things. And I had that struggle, and I said, I need to find somewhere else to put my thoughts. Like, I'm going to be awake right now one way or another, and unfortunately I'm probably going to be on my phone to help me stay awake as I'm feeding him and dealing with all these postpartum things. So where can I redirect this mental energy, this curiosity, this passion, and make it productive? Some people call it micro-learning. And so that's when I decided I'm going to figure out how to make this story into something. At that time, I had no idea how many pages a book should be. I didn't know how you find an illustrator. I didn't know how you take the words you write and get them onto the pictures that somebody makes. I did know that I would not be the one drawing the pictures. I have no artistic ability. I didn't know how to print a book. So those are all things that I was literally like scrolling and learning and redirecting my mind to focus on during those midnight feedings or sessions when you feel alone. And of course you have a baby right there. But I needed a project for me at that time.
So you start micro-learning the entire process. When do you physically put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard where you write out the story?
That is the first thing that you need to do. And I can't tell you how many people say to me, I have this story idea. Tell me how to publish a book. And I always tell them, write it down. It sounds like the most simple advice, and I think some people are annoyed by that advice, but it's so true. You might think that you have this whole story planned out, but until you really write word for word, sentence by sentence, you don't see the holes that you have in it. And by the way, I'm an open book. Like, people email me all the time asking about publishing or self-publishing or traditional publishing, and I'm more than happy to share free advice with anyone. But the first thing that I'm going to tell them is, if you wrote down your story idea, you wrote that whole manuscript, congratulations, because you've already finished something that most people don't do. I can't tell you how many people say, I have this great story idea. I can promise you that no one is ever going to approach you and offer to publish your story idea. So the first step really is writing it on paper. And I did, for a bad day of fishing, I literally wrote it out on paper, cut the pieces, stapled it together to figure out what the storyboard would look like, what the pictures on each page would be. And then, I had no fewer than 1,000 versions and edits and drafts on my phone.
That you did before you ever sent it to someone?
So part of the process, part of my journey of publishing and figuring out how to do that, I'll back up a little bit. So I would say, if you want to publish a book, there are 3 main routes that you could take. So there's traditional publishing. I think that's what most people think of when they think about publishing a book. And that would be through the big 5, as some call it, like Penguin, Simon & Schuster, Macmillan, for example. That's kind of like the dream route, right? There's an agent, and they pay you for the idea, and someone else does illustrations, and then they market it across the world. And in that scenario, you make royalties based on how many books sell. You lose control along the way, right? Because the publisher takes control. That's also, it's just kind of like winning the lottery. No, it's not luck. You have to have skill to go that right. So, I don't mean to take away the skill that traditionally published authors have, but you just have slim chances. Another option is called a vanity press. That's basically when you pay someone to publish a book for you.
Okay.
Vanity presses kind of get a bad reputation. Some people think that they're scammy. And I think the reason why they have that reputation is because they don't always create high quality content, or they don't always come through on the marketing they promise. But the premise is, and I'm not against the premise is that you pay someone else to put it all together and to make your idea into a book. And then the third option is what I did, and that's basically independently publishing. So I started my own publishing company. I'm an indie author, as someone would call it. I'm basically the general contractor of the book creation. So if you think about when you build the house, the general contractor is going to figure out who's doing the electricity, who's doing the plumbing, who's putting up the framing. I, as the publisher, the independent author, I'm subcontracting with the illustrator. I'm finding the copy editor. I'm finding the developmental editor. I'm finding the printer. And so that's what I had to figure out along the way. I did meet a great book coach who helped me figure those things out while I still had complete control. Yeah.
I'm already overwhelmed. Because at the time, you have 2 very young kids and a very big career. And now you are taking on this entirely new endeavor and starting a publishing business too.
Yeah, that was probably not a good idea. I don't recommend doing that, but I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. And so at the time, it was just one thing at a time, and then it evolved into so much more. Because what a lot of people don't realize, a lot of authors, is they think the hardest part is writing the book. That's just where the work is starting, right? The hardest part is in marketing and selling the book. It is like a second education. I've had to learn about publishing, e-commerce, literally international fulfillment to get books printed. So yeah, there was a lot of learning along the way.
And we are going to find out even more of that learning process as we continue this conversation with Paige. Before we take our first commercial break, though, will you please name all 5 of the books and also explain where people can get them?
Absolutely. So it all started with A Bad Day Fishing, featuring Bud and Jack on their outdoor adventure where everything goes wrong. Then Jack dreams up a baseball game where everything goes wrong in A Bad Day of Baseball, but in the end he learns about hustle, grit, and being a good teammate. Little Tree in a Big Forest is a great outdoor learning adventure, specifically about Midwestern trees and how they can be used in our everyday lives. A fun book is just that. It's silly, it's sweet, there's no story, but I love the collaboration with local illustrator Manuel Herrera. And my newest release, Not So Ordinary Ornaments, is very sentimental to me. I got to team up with someone very special, Mandy Hovelman, for that. And it, I hope, will become a new Christmas tradition for a lot of families. They're all available at PaigeHulsey.com.
PaigeHulsey.com. Friends, we encourage you to share this conversation with any mom in your life who has had a thought on her mind, but maybe who keeps saying, now is not the right time. I have too much going on. Maybe it is the right time. Maybe everything you're dealing with, running your family and your career, maybe that extra energy that is in there somewhere could be put into something like this or whatever is on your heart right now. And also we encourage you to share this with anyone who has kids, stepkids, grandkids. These books are fantastic. The fun book I keep in our car. I literally call it our car book. And whenever the kids are going nuts, I'm like, here's a fun book, and they can move it all around. So that's our go-to. Thank you for putting that out. We'll be right back with more with Paige Hulsey right here on Live with Laura. This has been an eye-opening conversation already as I sit across from Paige Hulsey because she has written and published 5 books. You see them right here. And I had no idea all the different layers that go into coming up with an idea, writing an actual story, and then getting it to this point.
I didn't either. That's why I was crazy enough to do it.
And do it 5 times. Okay, let's go back a little bit. You had the idea for A Bad Day of Fishing after you had your first son.
Yeah.
After your second son, though, that's when you wrote out the story.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So how long did it take from writing out the story to when you had this in your hands?
Ooh, very good question. I think that was about 2 years, a little short of 2 years, if my math is right. Because the illustrator who I worked with, Daniel Flodarski, he's wildly talented. He's so talented. And all of this was done before AI was really a thing. So I appreciate it even more now that I see some of the stuff that's being put out. But he had a long wait list. So part of that wait is just literally waiting for him to be available. He actually works a lot faster than many illustrators. But then the way that we chose to print, which is called offset printing, because that's the way to get the highest quality print, but you have to do so in bulk. That production and transportation takes a few months. So from the day I said, okay, we're going to do this to when it was finally published, which was December of 2023, it was close to 2 years. Yeah.
Whew. So you go through that. Basically, you have another baby right there. When did you get the idea to let's do this again?
Oh, I had the story for A Bad Day of Baseball written before A Bad Day Fishing was done.
Okay.
And I wanted to do it immediately. And it was the illustrator who was like, you need to slow down a little bit. But I did want to make a series, and I have a whole list of ideas of Jack and his family. Like in my mind, I have his whole family built out. He has a sister and what her bad days are and things like that. I don't know that the world will ever meet them, but I needed to complete that world in my head first. So I wrote that story right away. We had to wait a little bit, obviously, before we could bring it into production. And then with a fun book and Little Tree in a Big Forest, both of those happened pretty quickly. those were kind of a little experiment that I did. As I said, like, honestly, I'm learning a lot along the way, but I wanted to produce a book that was pure fun and silliness, as well as a book that was educational, and see which one was more popular. So those were released nearly around the same time. And it was like a little test to see, like, what does the market want? And it's been an interesting result.
What did you learn?
So a fun book, again, which was illustrated by Manuel Herrera, and a fun book is based on silly things that my own kids would do and say at bedtime. So this was like from the mind of a baby to other babies. It did not sell well online, still does not sell well online. However, when I'm at in-person events, it is one of the most popular books. People laugh out loud. It gets the biggest reaction compared to any other book. So it's become a very popular buy for younger kids as well as baby showers. Little Tree in a Big Forest was really popular with a few educational groups, like the Missouri Forest Products Association, who part of their mission is to educate people about the trees and how they're used in our everyday lives as well. Very popular around Earth Day. And it actually has my favorite illustrations out of any of these books. The illustrations in Little Tree in a Big Forest are stunning. My sons love that book the most because there are so many creatures in it. So, yeah, it was just very, very different. And I don't know that I would say, like, one strategy should be used over the other. It's just two different audiences.
Yes, and vastly different books. I mentioned the fun book being in our car because it's the type of pages that are just harder for my little kids' little hands. But as they do get older, I feel like the Little Tree in a Big Forest, as you mentioned, much more educational. They're going to get something out of it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the newest one, Not So Ordinary Ornament. Why do you love this book?
So Not So Ordinary Ornaments started with an off-the-cuff comment that my oldest son made in January, right after we just put all the Christmas decorations away.
Of this year?
No, of last year.
Okay.
Yes, of last year. So we come from a family where our cousins are very close. One of my cousins is Mandy Hovelman. She's a teacher in the Rockwood School District, and she's been very involved throughout this entire process. She's been very supportive. She'll come to events with me. I can pick her brain about educational things, like when we make supplemental things for classrooms. And so we had been on the phone and talking about book ideas and just the book process when my oldest son said, "What if you made a book about what ornaments do at night?" And I repeated it to her, and she was like, "Oh my God, we have to do that. Like, let's make that into a book." So it was special because where the idea was born, and then just working with her has been so much fun. It's been fulfilling. It's been refreshing. And to feel like I have a partner in this, somebody who I can bother at all hours of the day to talk about it with, it's just been really great.
And I know we are not supposed to judge books by their covers, but it's stunning.
Oh, thank you. And I hope you do judge it by its cover because we put a lot of work into that cover. Yeah, we wanted to try to figure out, and I posted on my social media, I think 4 different drafts of this book cover when we were trying to figure it out because we're like, that cover feels ordinary. And we want it to feel extraordinary.
Right.
And that's the whole concept of the book is what makes ornaments extraordinary, and in turn, what makes their owners, who are so often children who've been gifted the ornaments, what makes them extraordinary too. And so we poured a lot of work and drafts and brainstorming into finally getting the cover to the enchanted point that we wanted it to be.
And it's not just the cover. Would you mind picking it up and showing us the inside covers of your books too? That's something that's really stuck out to me as I've gone through them with my kiddos.
I'm so glad you noticed. These are called end pages, and each of my books, I don't want to cause a mess, but when you do offset printing, you can add these, and they're so fun. It just adds a little something special to notice. And so we love the fun end pages and them. And this book, it talks about a family's cherished ornament collection and the story behind each ornament. But they welcome a new ornament to their group, and that ornament just feels like it's ordinary, like it doesn't fit in. And so both the ornament and the readers have to learn what makes it special.
We won't give it away because you need to buy it yourself. And this is the type of book that you're going to want to display around the holidays. I have a copy of The Grinch, but I don't really love the way it looks when everything is out. This absolutely have it out on the coffee table. Go through it a few times throughout the holiday season.
Thank you. And even that color scheme was something that we had to talk about and plan. Like, is this like the bright and flashy bright green and bright orange, or is it more subtle, more traditional? And that's where we even added in the hint of navy. And I love the gold foiling too.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Something that I have learned even more through talking to you, especially over the last few months, it's also on you to get them out into the world. We explain some of the process of getting your books into stores.
Sure. It's complicated.
I've realized.
And there are a couple different strategies and, I guess, playbooks depending on what type of store you're trying to get your book into. So, if you think of like Walmart and Target, that's kind of a different game versus libraries or bookstores, and that's different than boutiques.
Yes.
And this is all something that I've had to learn along the way. But whether it's making the book or selling the book, one of the lessons that I'm trying to teach my kids too is you have to be your biggest advocate. Like, no one else is going to come save you. You have to figure it out. And it's a little uncomfortable to talk about money, to ask people to buy things, to ask people to take a chance on your product. But we are literally, it's like guerrilla marketing, one by one, trying to find stores that we connect with, that we feel like these books could reach the right clients through their stores. And this is a different approach now that we're in year 4 of this versus what I started out doing. We have some really great partnerships with some independent bookstores who we love and appreciate. But I know that their real estate is really competitive too, right? They only have room for so many books. And so while we love our local independent book partners that we have, bookstores in other states might not have that space for you, or they might want to save it for their local authors. Different stores have like return policies where they'll only buy consignment and not wholesale. So yeah, I don't know how much in the weeds you want to get, but right now what we're trying to focus on is finding boutiques, locally owned, small stores, small businesses who are kind of like in the same dogfight that we're in, and buy from them, and you're supporting both of us at the same time.
And local.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Twice in this conversation, though, you have brought up the fact that no one is just going to come to you.
Yeah. And I mean, whether it's a story idea you have or a business idea you have, you have to just get going yourself and get started. And you can't just let it live in your head forever.
And it's the mindset. And the mindset also goes back to the first 2 books, making what feels like everything is going wrong into, you know what, it was still a pretty great day. Because we were doing what we love.
Well, and I think you and I have experienced that in our main careers as well. Like, we did not have someone in our hometowns who we saw navigate a career in TV news. I didn't know anyone who had navigated trying to publish a children's book. And so it's trial and error and determination. And that's also what kids will learn in the stories like A Bad Day Fishing and A Bad Day of Baseball.
You do a lot of book readings on the weekends, which is even more of a time commitment. But as you're sitting there, and I envision it kind of going back to kindergarten and first grade for me, where the reader would be in a chair and all the kids would be on a rug kind of like this, crisscross applesauce, looking up, just with their mouths open. What are those moments like to you?
They're intimidating.
But the kids are so excited.
I mean, they're also brutally honest.
Oh, yeah,
right? Like,
there's that.
you can't hide anything from kids. If it's not funny, they're going to tell you it's not funny. Or, like, they'll laugh at something you didn't realize was funny. And then, of course, they always have their own story ideas that they want to share in the middle of your story, which is great. But actually, just last week or the week before, Mandy and I were in northwestern Ontario in Canada reading Not So Ordinary Ornaments in a community that's important to both of us. And, you know, you're in a different country. They obviously speak the same language in northwestern Ontario. We're all speaking English, but we do have different traditions. But to hear those kids talk about their favorite ornaments or what was special about them or which ones they loved in this book because they had one that looked similar to theirs, that's really special.
Yes, and it has gone international. I love that you read to a group of Canadian kiddos. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's go back to your childhood a little bit. What's your favorite childhood book that you still remember?
I still have, it's actually an early reader, I guess you would call. Not a picture book, but it has lots of pictures. It was called The Baseball Ballerina, and it's about a little girl who she's supposed to be a ballerina, but she also wants to play baseball. And so she finds a way to do both. My mom and I joke all the time about me learning to read that I just had to teach myself because growing up, my mom, who I adore, we're very, very close, but she's raising 3 kids. She's going to school full time, working at a hospital. And now as a mom of 2, I'm like, how did you do it all? But now I also understand why she would fall asleep reading to me at night.
Yes. She's like, I have been going all day.
The end. So we do joke about that. But the point is that she did make time to try to read to me, and I hope other families are doing the same.
Yes. Have you read that book to your boys?
Oh, good question. No, I know exactly where it is. I need to pull it out for them. Yeah, I bet they would enjoy it.
You say that kids are brutally honest. When you read your books to your own kids, what is some of their feedback?
Well, they love Little Tree in a Big Forest. They love picking out the creatures in it. Not So Ordinary Ornaments. My youngest is an absolute train lover, so you might have saw the train in here. But like he'll call this the train book. And I'm like, well, it's actually it has a whole different storyline. But if that's what makes it magical for you. And I do try to put something in there for each of them, you know, that they'll pick out that I knew that I was thinking of them, and I hope one day they'll be old enough to realize that too. Here, I'm trying to find the train page. And even here's an example of how we tried to be intentional for different kids. Like, you know, some kids love dinosaurs, and they're so into dinosaurs.
My kids, yes.
Okay. We have a fishing Santa in here, kind of a nod to Jack. There's an airplane ornament in here. Mandy's oldest son is a pilot.
Oh.
And so when you do self-publish the way that we did, you get to make those decisions and fit those little Easter eggs, as some call it, into the story.
And you definitely do that in the Bad Day books because something that I've noticed, there are a lot of cardinals.
Yes. So a cardinal, I think a lot of people see the cardinal as a symbol of those who you love. A Bad Day Fishing, inspired partly by my grandpa, too. And he actually passed away when this book was in its final stages and as it was being released. I did get to share it with him, though, and my grandma Aggie as well. And so the cardinals just to remind us all about those people who love you. And when you are having a bad day, you might not see them, but they're with you. And so I try to tell kids that as well during book readings. In A Bad Day of Fishing, you'll see the cardinal every time you turn the page, but sometimes it's a little harder to see than others, just like your support system.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I point it out every time I read that book to my kids. And I'm going to continue to cry each time I do it. Now that I even know the intentionality behind it, because I just assumed that was a nod to our St. Louis Cardinals each time.
Yeah.
That is very special. So Grandpa
Bryce
and Grandma Aggie.
And Grandma Aggie. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We are going to take our final break. As we do that, I hope you are just feeling as inspired as I am to finally take that first step into whatever has been weighing on your heart and in your mind. Paige is living proof that you can literally put it onto a page and turn it into a book or a business that you weren't trained in, that you figured it out along the way. Everything is figure-outable in this world.
That's right. You can't do it all. You can do anything, but you can't do it all.
Good points. We'll be right back to wrap things up with Paige Hulsey. We have a few more moments here with the very talented, very busy Paige Hulsey. She not only is an anchor here at First Alert 4 and leads A Great Day for Kids on Great Day St. Louis, she's also a mom, a wife, and has published 5 books, but you've written 6.
Yes. So I guess this will be a worldwide exclusive announcement.
Let's do it.
Live with Laura. So 5 here. A 6th book is in the works. It's almost ready to go to print. And that should be released in the spring. It'll probably be my final book as well.
Before we get into that, can you tell us the name or the premise?
Yes. Okay. So the final book is called The Pumpkin House.
Cute.
And this is the way that this book came about. Actually, the illustrator who I've worked with, Daniel Vladarsky, he created this picture that I became obsessed with. And I'm like, I love this picture. And it was a pumpkin and these creatures coming out of it. They'd made it into a house. So normally you write a story and then it gets illustrated. I said, based on this illustration, can I write the story behind this illustration? So it's almost like I created the book backward. And I wrote the story literally that night, the same day that I saw the picture, and sent it to him. And I was like, I'm obsessed with this. Like, I want to make this into a book. That was when he was still working on A Bad Day Fishing. So this was several years ago. And this has kind of been on the back burner ever since. And that's why it feels like the way to make it come full circle and really complete my book creation time with The Pumpkin House.
And it's so interesting. You say it's coming out in the spring. Most would think that pumpkin books.
Yes, it is a fall book.
Okay.
But it will be available in the spring so that retailers will have time to get it on your store shelves
By fall.
Yes, exactly.
And that's just another layer as normal consumers we just don't have to think about because someone else thought about it for us.
Yes. I mean, right now I'm talking to retailers who are already planning next summer. They started buying for Christmas in January. Some of them are still open to adding not so ordinary ornaments right now, which we're working through that process. But these things take so much more time than I ever realized.
And something that I have to think you think is really special is the fact that your little boys are still in the age range where you are going to take them to the pumpkin patch probably several times over the next few months.
Yeah, not only do they get to enjoy that season, which I love fall, but they are still enjoying these books right now. They're the first critics. They get to see the first illustrations. They get to read the first copies. I mean, they're literally there when the boxes of books arrive. They have seen every step of this process. They help me carry the envelopes into the post office to mail. And I hope when they get old enough, first I hope they'll realize we were all part of it. I hope they think it was worth it. But more than anything, I hope that they say, well, I can figure something out too. Whether it's learning how to build a birdhouse or changing a tire. Like if I don't know how to do something, it's figure-outable.
Yes, we can learn it together.
Yeah.
Full circle, you think this is going to be the final one?
I do.
What are you going to do with all of your free time?
I don't. Maybe
be a mom,
right? Exactly. Be a present wife. I don't know. Learn how to cook. Get back to my crochet goal that I set earlier this year. It's been a really great adventure and journey. As families grow and change, I think it'll be you just refocus as the boys' needs change and evolve as they get a little older too, and I'm sure they're going to start more extracurricular activities. There will always be a few story ideas in my head that I just have to come to peace with, that they live only in my head forever and that they won't come to print likely. But I feel like I did what I set out to do. You know, I said I wanted to publish a book, and I'm going out with 6.
Yes, 6 unique ones that are important in so many different ways. And I want to talk about responsibility for a moment, specifically for children's book authors. What responsibility do you and other people in that space have, knowing that you are writing for young minds?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I'm so glad you asked about this because I have had that conversation with people, booksellers and other parents. And I wanted to create books that everyone in the family can feel good about sharing, reading together. There aren't, underlying messages, hidden messages. We're exploring the outdoors. We're being kind. We're being determined. We're just learning good, positive, wholesome character traits is what I hope people see, because that's what I want my kids to experience right now too.
You mentioned some of the things that came out of a fun book being what your boy said at bedtime. What does it mean to you knowing that there are families who are sitting down at that very important time of day with their own kids with a book that you put out into the world?
That is wild to think about when you put it like that. I mean, that's really special. It's really humbling. It's almost like, I don't know if I'm worthy, but I'm grateful. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for taking a chance. I hope you enjoy it. I hope both the parents and the kids enjoy it, because I know sometimes you get tired of reading the same thing.
So you said worthy right there. Has imposter syndrome ever crept in?
Oh, yes.
Why?
Yes. Because I wanted to create, I knew I was an independent publisher, an independent author, but I didn't want my books to look DIY. I wanted them to look like they deserved a spot, they earned a spot, they fit in on a bookstore shelf in a professional way, just like anything else did. And there have been mistakes made along the way. These books are not perfect, and I've lost a lot of sleep thinking about a couple of mistakes along the way. But it's also a reminder that sometimes done is better than perfect. And you can't let that stop you. Sometimes you have to make it exist before you can make it great. But that's still a struggle when I'm like, oh, I wonder if they notice that. Yeah. Do I belong here?
You absolutely belong here. And that's another life lesson you're teaching your boys.
Yeah. And I hope that we can continue to have those conversations as they get older and they try new things too. We talk about you can do hard things.
Yeah.
We can all do hard things. But it's only going to get easier if you keep trying.
Let's focus on motherhood a little bit. You had a son at such an interesting time. And I talked to you after you came back from maternity leave. And you kind of felt like you didn't get the new mom experience that so many other moms get.
Yeah, so he was 5 weeks old when the COVID lockdown started.
Oh.
And since it was my first, maybe at the time I didn't know what I was missing. But when I had my second, just 2 years later, I realized I never learned how to leave the house with one. How am I supposed to know how to leave the house with two? And it's hard. Yeah. Being a newborn mom is hard for me. And I think different moms excel at different stages. I love 3, 4, 5. This is fun now. But yeah, that's hard. And if story time can bring a few peaceful minutes and I get to be part of that, that's a huge honor. I don't want story time to be an added stress or burden, because I think sometimes we do tell moms a lot of what you should be doing. So I don't want to add to that. And so hopefully these are easy books. Get through them fast. Go to bed.
It's funny that you say you don't want to add stress. Just on Sunday, I have had a few weekends where it's just me with the kids. And I know with your husband's schedule, that happens a lot for you. And there's so much chaos sometimes and everything is loud, it feels like. And my daughter was just coming apart about everything. So I finally sat down right there on the floor, crisscross applesauce. And she came and sat on my lap, and she just rested her head right here. And I didn't want to move, but there was a book close enough where I could kind of reach it. And I brought it over, and we just sat there and read the same book, I kid you not, well over 10 times.
Oh, my goodness.
But then the stress, it did go away. And what she was seeking was connection.
Yes. Yeah.
And a book can give it to you, can give you the connection. And
I so appreciate the parents and grandparents who are still seeking out books instead of screens or, they definitely have their purpose and their space. But I hope that we don't lose them to the printed paper. The books are available, children's books, picture books are available on Kindles, and that's great. But I just love the physicality of the board books too for the younger kids, turning the pages. And there are skills in reading books. Literally, how do I open a book? What way do the pages turn? Which way do I hold the book? I mean, those are all things that you're teaching kids when you're reading that book, same book, 10 times in a row.
Over and over and over. And every time you read a book, you pick out something new. And especially with yours that are so colorful. And as you mentioned, there are so many creatures in it. To have that moment to stop the story, to talk about the frog, the worm.
Yes.
Sometimes your book has taken like 40 minutes.
Sorry.
But that's okay. That's okay. It's much more important to point out all of those things.
Yeah, especially with Daniel Vladarski. Literally, I am still seeing new things in his illustrations. I think it's actually in A Bad Day of Baseball. He wrote I want you to try to find it. He wrote a little heart with his and his wife's initials hidden in there. And what a sweet gesture.
Yes.
In the pumpkin house, my son's artwork is on one of the walls. There's always something to find. And when I realized he had that ability in A Bad Day of Baseball, we added this whole seek and find part of it. And we're actually working on a second edition of A Bad Day Fishing, which is being reprinted right now, that will also have that seek and find. And when you get a book, you don't always have to read it. That's okay. You can just look at the pictures. You can make up your own story. You don't have to read the words that I wrote. And I think that's what's great about books. You can make up your own rule to reading your books.
But the books you have written, you've done a very good job on those stories. One more time, A Pumpkin House comes out.
The Pumpkin House comes out early spring, we'll say. Yeah, to be determined exact date.
But right now you can get all of these books through...
These books are available at paigehulsey.com. Also, so many local stores. Main Street Books in St. Charles, Neighborhood Books in Washington, Belleville Books. Pip and Kate in Laura's hometown of Florida will be bringing on Not So Ordinary Ornaments, and so many more. I have a full list on my social media. I'll be updating that as well soon, too.
Through this process, I am sure you have asked for a lot of advice. What is the best advice you have for people who do want to try something new? They just don't know where to start.
Well, just take the first step. Yeah. If it's a book and you want to write a book, write it. Is the idea just in your head? Get it on paper. Do you want to learn how to draw? Okay, I don't have any advice if you want to learn how to draw. But I think the first step is just to try it and to be okay knowing that at first it might not be pretty or great. But by trying it, you've already done more than most people.
Paige Hulsey, thank you for the gift of your time and the gift of your talents that you've put into 5, almost 6 books.
Thank you for having me on Live with Laura. Thank you for sharing my stories, not only with your fans, but most importantly, your own kids.
Yes, it's been really fun to then put the book down and say, look, this is Mommy's friend who wrote it. That is really, really special.
Thank you, Laura.
All right, friends, we're going to change the tagline just a bit. So until next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for learning. Thank you for reading. And thank you for being Live with Laura.